A Western Christmas by Mrs. W. H. Corning. Christmas week there was no school, but such a succession of dining days, and visiting days, and day parties, and night parties, that Fanny, who looked forward to the week as a season of rest, thought that the regular routine of school duties would be less fatiguing. Christmas at La Belle Prairie was the one jubilee of the year, something to be talked about for 6 months beforehand, and to be remembered as long after. It was a time of feasting and recreation for both master and servant. Days before, preparations commenced in the kitchen. Various smells issued from thence, savory smells of boiled, baked, and roasted meats, and sweet delicious smells of warm pastry and steaming cakes. Aunt Tibby was rolling pie crust or stirring cake all day long, and the chopping of sausage meat, the pounding of spices, and the beating of eggs were constantly heard. Everything was carried on with the greatest secrecy. The children were all kept out of the kitchen, and when "somefin' good" was to be transferred therefrom to Miss Caroline's store-room, Aunt Tibby came sailing in, holding it high above the reach of the curious little heads. "I don't care," said Cal. "There's 6-pound cakes all in a row on the store-room shelf. I see 'em when Ma opened the door, and Marthy says one of 'em got currants in it, and there's a little shote thar roasted whole. Oh, how I wish Christmas was come." Coming suddenly upon Maud one day, Fanny found her with her apron half full of bran, while her fingers were busily at work upon a few pieces of faded silk. Maud tried to hide them at first, but finding by Fanny's question of "What is it, Maud?" that it was too late, she had looked up with a tired, flushed face and said, "Miss Fanny, don't you tell now, will you? I'm makin' a pin cushion for Aunt Phoebe, but it won't come square, all I can do. It acts awfully. Let me see what the trouble is," said Fanny, and sitting down, she examined the poor cushion, which, indeed, under Maud's hands, was not soon likely to come into shape. "You see," said Maud, "I want to give Auntie a Christmas gift, and I thought a cushion would be so nice, 'cause her old one that she wears pinned to her waist, you know, has burst a great hole, and the bran keeps tumbling out. I'm going to make her a right nice one, only I wish 'twas brighter, 'cause Auntie likes red, and yellow, and all them, so bad." Fanny searched her piece bag and brought forth bits of gay ribbon, the sight of which threw Maud into ecstasies of delight. Then giving up the morning to the job, she cut and planned, and fitted and basted together, getting all in order, so that Maud could do the sewing herself. "Auntie wouldn't think half so much of it if I didn't," said the child. Well and faithfully Maud performed her labor of love, giving up her much-prized runs on the prairie, and resisting all the children's entreaties to play with them, till the Christmas gift was finished. It was no small task, for Maud most heartily hated to sew, and her fingers were anything but nimble in the operation. "I always did despise to sew, Miss Fanny," she said, "but I'm going to make this cushion for Auntie anyhow." It was finished at last, and, as Maud expressed it, was just as beautiful as it could be. There never was a prouder, happier child. She did not thank Fanny in words for her assistance, but that night she came softly behind her, and putting her arms around her neck, gave her an earnest kiss, a proceeding which called forth an exclamation of surprise from Mrs. Catlett, for Maud was very chary of her caresses. Christmas morning came, and long before daylight, every child upon the place, both black and white, was up ready to march in Christmas. There had been mysterious preparations the night before, such as the hiding of tin pans and glass bottles under the bed, and the faint tooting of an old horn, heard down at the quarters, as though someone was rehearsing a part. Fanny was also astonished by an application from little Darky Tom for permission to use her school bell, the said cow tinkler not being remarkable for sweetness of sound. "Oh, yes, Tom, you may take it, but what can you want of it? Couldn't tell no ways, Miss Fanny," said Tom, with a grin. "Mebbe Miss Fanny know in de mornin'." Morning did indeed bring an explanation of the mystery. Assembling in the yard, the children marshalled themselves into marching order, Maud, of course, being captain, and taking the lead, bearing an old tin horn, while little black Tom brought up the rear with Fanny's unfortunate cow-bell. In this order they commenced, marching in Christmas to the music of the horn, the beating of tin pans, the rattling of bits of iron and pieces of wood, the jingling of bells, and the clapping of hands. Into the house, and upstairs to the very doors of the sleeping rooms, they all marched with their horrid din. It was received with tolerable good humour by all but Nanny, who, deprived of her morning nap by the tumult, raved at the juvenile disturbers of the peace, and finally threw her shoes at them as they stood on the stairway. These were directly seized upon as trophies, and carried off in triumph to the quarters, where the young performers went through with the same operations. Christmas gift. Christmas gift, was the first salutation from the servants this morning, and it was well worth while to give them some trifling present, were it only to hear their extravagant expressions of gratitude and delight. It was impossible to forget for a moment that it was Christmas. One could see it in the faces of the servants, released for a whole week from their daily tasks, and rejoicing in the prospect of dances, and parties, and visits to friends and kindred on distant plantations. The children, too, with their boisterous merriment and constant talk about the holidays, seemed determined to bear it in mind, and the great dinner, the one dinner of the year, in the preparation of which Aunt Tibby had exercised all her skill, this, in itself, seemed to proclaim that it was Christmas. "Oh, Miss Fanny," said little Joy, "don't you wish Christmas lasted the whole year round?" The short December day was fast drawing to a close, as a party of 4 rode leisurely along the road crossing La Belle Prairie. The ladies, though scarcely recognizable in their close hoods, long blue cotton riding skirts, and thick gloves, were none other than Miss Nancy Catlett and our friend Fanny, while their attendants were Mr. Chester, the town gentleman, and Massa Dave Catlett, who had come over from his new home in Kansas, on purpose to enjoy the Christmas festivities on the prairie.